Alright, so we are going to attempt October, November 24, paper 11, paper 1, variant 1. The first question is, which statement is a normative statement? And again, we know that the normative statement is an opinion. It is an opinion. The difference between fact and an opinion is that when we talk about facts, facts is something like which has a numerical value, like in these options that we have. And opinion does not have a numerical value and cannot be measured. All right. So, which one is a
Yeah.
normative statement? The annual rate of inflation in
The
Malaysia increased from 2.8% in May to 3.4%, from 2.8 to 3.4%. This is a positive statement because this includes numbers and it is a fact. All right. The annual rate of inflation was 3.4% in Malaysia, lower than the 7.7% annual rate on inflation in Thailand. Again, this is also a fact. The Malaysian Central Bank raised interest rate from 2 to 2.25% on July 6th, 2022. Again, this includes numbers and this is a fact, positive statement. The rise in interest rate in Malaysia in July 2022 is expected to only have a small impact on the rate of inflation. So in this case, we are giving an opinion that we think that the rise in interest rate will not be that much effective. So this is an opinion-based statement, and opinions means normative statement. All right. A firm
yeah.
operating in country S moved its existing capital to a larger factory in country T. It also installed more of the same equipment and increased the size of its workforce. From the evidence provided, what must be true? So we need to decide which option is correct on the basis of supply curve. Now, look at the options. The firm is operating in the long run. In long run, all the FOPs are variable. Land, labor, capital, all of them are variable. Now, if we read the question again, country S moved its capital, which means that it can move capital equipment easily. It's mobile, occupationally and it's geographically mobile. To a larger factory in country T, it has an existing capital. It installed more of the same equipment, increased the size of its workforce. This means that all the factors of productions are variable. So when all the factors of production are variable, the firm is operating in the long run. So this could be correct. The firm is operating in the very long run. Very long run means technological advancement. Whenever there is technological advancement in your business, you operate in very long run. But the problem is that in this question, there is no such statement regarding improvement in technology or updating the technology, research and development, and all that. So this is wrong. The firm's division of labor has increased. There is no such evidence that we have in this case. The firm's supply curve shifted to left? No, it shifted to right. So the answer is A. Which statement is not correct? So we have to find out the wrong one. Addictive drugs are regarded as demerit good because users are unaware of the full damage they do. This is a correct statement that people are unaware of the damages the demerit good does. Then we have air is regarded as a free good because its use has no opportunity cost. This is also correct. This is also correct statement that air is regarded as a free good. The national defense is regarded as a public good because one citizen consuming it reduces the amount of it available to others. This means that this statement is referring to public good being rivalrous in nature. Whereas in reality, public good is non-rivalrous in nature. So this statement is wrong. This is not how it works. Visit to a doctor are regarded as private goods partly because they are rival. Yes, because they are rivalrous in nature, it's a private good. So the answer is C. We have to find out the wrong answer. Kiran, give me the answer of this one. Which one is constant opportunity cost?
Can you please scroll down a bit? I can see.
Sorry,
Can you? Okay, never mind. I can see it now. Uh,
what is the answer?
A.
Uh,
A.
Constant opportunity cost. Question number 5. Farmers are using traditional methods, lack access to finance, and often employ family members on a part-time basis. So the farming is a labor-intensive work, all right? If working practices in agriculture could be improved, how would this be likely to be shown on the production possibility curve? Now the question is saying that if your working practices improves, how would there be a shift or a movement in in production possibility curve? Now, Kalen, in this statement, in this statement, it often employs family members on a part-time basis. This means that we are a labor-intensive business, all right? And we have improved ourselves by employing more family members, more workers, which means
Mm-hmm.
that unemployment is falling,
Okay.
right? Unemployment is falling. This means that we must be operating on our actual point, that is S. All right, we must be operating on our actual point because we are not that efficient, right? But it is saying that the practice that we are doing right now has improved agriculture. This means that my agriculture goods should increase. All right. So how will my movement be from point S to point T? Because I'm not manufacturing manufactured goods. I'm not producing manufactured goods. I'm focusing on agriculture goods. So the answer will be movement from S to T. Clear?
Okay.
Clear?
Yes, sir.
All right. Question number 6. In a particular year, 12,000 units of good are sold at $1. In a later year, 14,000 units are sold at a price of $1.2. Law of demand states that there is a negative relationship between price and demand. If price increases, your quantity demand will fall, right? This is the case. But in this question, you can see that with an increase in your price level, your quantity demand is increasing as well. Now, this means that if your price level is rising, your quantity demand is rising as well. Now, there could be a few cases due to which this could happen. First of all, I can say that if Pepsi's price increase from $1 to $1.2 and Coke's price increase from $1 to $1.5, this means that Coke is more expensive than Pepsi. So it doesn't matter if Pepsi is raising its price level, consumer will still buy Pepsi, and more of the consumers will switch to Pepsi. One scenario is this, that the substitute is charging a higher price. Second could be that if you are charging a higher price level and your demand is increasing, this means that you have improved your quality. So if your quality is good, there is improvement in quality, yes, there will be increase in demand as well. Now, if consumer tastes have remained constant, what could account for the change between the 2 years? Look at the options. A decrease in the price of raw materials used by producers. If there was a decrease in the price of raw material, your supply should have increased. Your cost of production falls. Your supply should have increased, which would have reduced your price level. But in this case, your price level is rising. All right. So this is not a correct answer. An increase in the price of substitute good could be correct. Like I just gave you the example of Pepsi and Coke. An increase in the rate of tax imposed by producers, imposed on producers. Again, this will reduce supply. Yes. This will increase price level. Yes. But your overall quantity will fall. It will not increase. The formation of a monopoly in a production of the good, it is not necessary. And usually monopoly reduces the equilibrium quantity to increase the price level. It creates an artificial shortage. So the answer is B.
Okay.
What is most likely to cause an increase in the consumer surplus in the market for a normal good? So I need to draw the demand curve first. This is your normal demand curve, right? This is your initial price level and this is your initial quantity, which leaves you with this area of consumer surplus. Now let's look at the options. An increase in consumer income. We are talking about which good? We are talking about normal good. Normal good is a good which states that if your income level is rising, your demand will rise as well. So if there's an increase in income, your demand curve will shift rightwards like this. and your consumer surplus will also increase because at the same price level you are demanding more goods, so your consumer surplus will rise. So this could be a correct answer. This could be a correct answer. Now let's move further. Let's move further. A could be correct. An increase in the number of substitutes. This will increase your PED. This will make you good elastic, and you know yourself that if your demand is elastic in nature, your consumer surplus will be low because consumers will be willing to pay less amount of money for the same good that they consume. So your consumer surplus will decrease. We need to increase consumer surplus. An increase in the price of complementary good. If there is an increase in the price of complementary good, demand curve will shift leftwards like this. Like for example, if there's an increase in the price of car, your demand curve for petrol will shift leftwards like this, and your consumer surplus will fall. So again, this is also a wrong answer. An increase in the price of good. If there's an increase in the price of good, your price level will rise like this, and your consumer surplus will fall. Your consumer surplus will fall, which is again a wrong answer. So your answer is A. The table shows lease and YIMS PED for restaurant meals and cinema tickets. There is a rise in the price of restaurant meals and a fall in the price of cinema tickets. All right. Let's first distribute elastic and inelastic. So for Lee, restaurant is elastic, whereas cinema is inelastic. For Yim, restaurant is inelastic and cinema is elastic. All right. What can be concluded
Okay.
after these price changes? So this case is saying that the restaurant meal price is rising. We are increasing the price of restaurant meal and we are decreasing the price of cinema tickets. All right, we are decreasing the price of cinema tickets. Now, what can be concluded? Now, if I let's just not read the options first, let's just take our own assumptions. So let's talk about Lee first. Lee's demand for restaurant is elastic and cinema is inelastic. We can see that the price of restaurant meal is increasing and the price of cinema is falling. We need to calculate total expenditure of Lee for restaurant and cinema. Kalen, the price of restaurant meal is rising, right? The price is rising and demand is elastic. So if there's an increase in price, a small increase in price, demand will fall by a very large percentage and Lee's expenditure will fall. All right. As for cinema, demand for cinema is inelastic and the price of cinema is falling. So if there is a decrease in price level by a large percentage, quantity of Lee will rise by a very small percentage. Again, total expenditure of Lee will fall. So expenditure of Lee is falling in both cases. Everything clear till now?
Yes, sir.
As for Yim, we have again restaurant and cinema. So demand for restaurant for Yim is inelastic in nature. So if there is an increase in price by a large percentage, the quantity will fall by a very small percentage. And Yim's expenditure will rise. And if we talk about cinema, if price level falls by a very small percentage, the quantity will rise by a very large percentage, and again total expenditure will rise. So Yim's expenditure is rising in both cases, and Lee's expenditure is falling in both cases. Everything clear?
Okay, sir.
Now let's take a look at the options. Restaurant owners will receive more income. No, because at one stage revenue of restaurant is falling, at the other stage revenue of restaurant is rising. So it is not necessary that they will earn more income. Lee will spend more money on both cinema and restaurant tickets, whereas we can clearly see that Lee's expenditure is falling. So Lee will not spend more on cinema and restaurant. Yim will spend more money on both
Yeah.
tickets and restaurant. Yes, both expenditure are rising. Cinema owners will receive less income. No. Answer is C. All right.
Okay, sir.
What is not held constant when aggregating individual firm supply curve to give short-term market supply? The concept being referred here is ceteris paribus. And what is the definition of ceteris paribus? Which states that apart from all apart from one variable factor, all other factors are constant. So in that case, that one variable factor is what? Price. Because price is not held constant, price is continuously changing. All right.
Yeah, please.
Which elasticity would be a shortage of skilled worker effect? Would a shortage of skilled worker effect? What is the answer?
Which elasticity? Which
Elasticity of elasticity of Kilin.
once again, so shortages. Cross elasticity.
How will labor affect cross elasticity of demand? Read the question. Read the options again. Which option is linking to supply?
Okay, price elasticity of supply then. Sorry.
Right. So we have another MCQ. We did this kind of MCQ earlier in the paper as well in May June attempt.
Mm-hmm.
D1, D2, what would cause demand curve to shift to D2? But the difference in this MCQ is that in that MCQ, the price level was rising, but in this MCQ, your price level is falling. All right. Your prices are falling, but again, your quantity is same. Let's take an example that you're consuming 100 units. You were consuming 100 units when the price was 10. Now, since the price is 5, you are still consuming 100 units. But according to the law of demand, if there's a decrease in price, your demand should have increased, right? But your demand is constant at the same stage of 100 units. Now, what could be the reason? Option A, the cost of running the individual's car rises. Now, Kalen, you clearly know that public and private transport both are substitutes. All right, both are substitutes. Now, if the price of the cost, we're talking about the cost. All right. Now, if the cost of using your own car is rising, cost of private car is rising, people will switch to public goods or public cars, public transport. All right, people will switch to public transport. So this should increase demand of public transport, right? But in this case, your demand is same. So this is not your correct answer. The individual is banned from driving. Again, if I am banned from driving my own private car, I would opt out for public transport. So this should increase demand for public transport, whereas the demand for public transport is constant. Clear?
Yes, sir.
So again, there will be no change. The price of public transport rises. The price is falling. It is not increasing. Price is falling. The quality of public transport declines. This could be correct. Why? Because in this case, that even if we are charging a lower price, even if we are charging a lower price, people are still not being attracted by a decrease in price. The reason being that my quality is very poor. If my quality is poor, people will not go for public transport. All right. That is the reason why there is a possibility that people are still not being attracted by a decrease in price level. Which government action would be classified, which we would be identified as the direct provision of goods and services? Direct provision means that the government is producing goods and services themselves. All right.
Yeah.
And we have also learned about direct provision in market failure as well. Like in merit good, government can provide education, healthcare services themselves. Increasing road maintenance because of poor weather condition. Yes, this is a job of government. So this is direct provision. Making payment to low income families with elderly dependents, private individual can do that as well. It is not necessary that only government is able to do this kind of work. Subsidizing firms in order to encourage them to increase their output. Again, it is not completely dependent on government. And also, when I talk about government provision, this means that I get a good directly from government. If government is giving subsidy to a firm, the firm will produce goods and services and will supply goods and services, which means that between government and me, there is a firm. There is a third party. Between government and me, a consumer, there's a firm, there's a third party. When we talk about government provision, direct provision, this means that government and me We are both dealing with each other. There is no third party in between. But in subsidies and taxes, there is a third party, that is firm. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Specific tax is imposed on a product for which the elasticity of supply is zero. Which statement is correct? Karen, if you remember, we learned about indirect tax, the concept of indirect tax, and how burden is shared between consumers and producers when there is different elasticity of demand. We also learned about perfectly inelastic demand. In perfectly
Yes.
inelastic demand, where PED is equals to zero, all burden is passed on to consumer. All burden on consumer in perfectly inelastic demand. So in perfectly inelastic supply, who will bear up all the burden?
Depends.
There,
Yeah.
answer is B. A government wishes to intervene in a free market to allocate healthcare at a socially optimum level. Healthcare, we're talking about healthcare, which is merit good. All right. Which combination correctly identifies the reason for government intervention in the healthcare market? Why is government intervening in the market? Because merit good is underconsumed, merit good is underproduced, and merit good is underallocated. So the answer is C. The table shows CPI, which statement about period 2008 and 2013 is correct. All right. Prices increased each year. Now, let's just calculate percentage change in price level. So what are we going to do? We are going to use this formula, new minus old over old, multiply by 100. So if we move from 100 to 104, this is 4% increase in price. All right. Then if
Yeah.
we move from 104 to 102, new minus old over old, multiply by 100. This is minus 1.9%. Minus 1.9%, which means that your price level is falling at this stage. All right. Then from 102 to 105, 3 over 102 multiplied by 100. This is 2.9%. Then again, from here to here, it is 2.8%. And again, this is 2.7%. All right. This is 2.7%. Now let's take a look at the options. Price increased each year. But due to percentage change formula, we can see that in this stage, the price level is falling. So the price level did not increase each year. This is not a correct answer. Prices increased fastest in 2011, which means from here to here by 2.9%. No, the fastest increase in price was this from 2008 to 2009. Rate of inflation was 2% in 2010. Rate of inflation was 2% in 2010. No, this was the percentage change. This was the percentage change. All right.
Yeah.
Smallest rise in the prices was in 2013. Yes, by only how much? 2.7%. And student get confused, sir, this is negative. Why is this not the answer? Because this is negative. It is asking about smallest rise in the price, not decrease in the price. Do you understand?
Understood, sir.
What is most likely to cause the price level to rise and increase in what? Again, it's increase in raw material price, cost push inflation, very simple. Because if there is an increase in productivity, supply level will rise, price level will fall. Increase in income tax, aggregate demand will fall, price level will fall. Subsidies to producer, supply will rise, price will fall. All right. What is most likely to increase country's circular flow of income? Which of these things will increase circular flow of income or bring multiplier effect in the economy? Kalen, what is the answer?
And, uh, interest rate.
Increasing interest rate.
Yeah. Increasing.
If you increase your interest rate, your aggregate demand will fall and there will be a negative multiplier.
Oh, okay. I think it's
What is budget deficit?
okay.
Government spending is more than tax revenue. So you need to increase your government
Uh-huh.
spending, you need to decrease your tax revenue. This is when your budget deficit rises. All right. So your budget deficit will increase and it will
Uh,
increase aggregate demand, bringing multiplier in the economy. Clear?
okay.
You need to revise basic concepts again. A country with constant population experiences a 5% increase in its nominal GDP during a year. In which situation will average living standard be most likely to have increased during the year? So an economy has a constant population nominal GDP of 5%. All right. In which situation average living standards be most likely to have increased? When we talk about average living standard has increased, we should refer to real GDP only. First of all, we need to refer to real GDP only. So nominal GDP does not give us accurate result, all right, because it is not adjusted with inflation. So we need to consider real GDP only. First of all, let's eliminate the options in which the real GDP is not there. If government take action to ensure there is no increase in unemployment, if there is no redistribution of income, leave it. Acha. Second point, when we talk about average living standard, when your average living standard should increase, we mean by this statement, what we mean is that your GDP per capita is rising. Your GDP per capita is rising. And your nominal GDP is greater than your inflation rate. That is when there is a real GDP increase. Now let's take a look at the options again. If government takes action to ensure there is no increase in unemployment, there is no increase in unemployment means that you are still focusing on 5% GDP only. You're still focusing on 5% GDP only, and that is nominal GDP. We cannot judge that if your standard of living is rising or not until and unless we don't have the measurement of inflation. So we need measurement of inflation first. All right. And in this option, there is no measurement of inflation. Second, your inflation rate was 3%. Your nominal GDP is 2%. Your inflation rate is 3%, which leaves you with a 2% real GDP. 2% real GDP, which could be a correct answer. Your real GDP is rising. If there is no increase in real national income, there is no increase in real national income. So it doesn't matter how much your nominal GDP increases, it will not increase your standard of living. All right. If there is no redistribution of income, there will be a fall in average living standard, and we're talking about an increase in average living standard. All right. So the answer is B. Which combination correctly identifies the necessary information to construct an accurately labeled graph of a normal short-run aggregate supply? Short-run aggregate supply is upward sloping, which means that it is positive. All right. Horizontal axis is horizontal, which means your x-axis is real output, real GDP. All right. And your sorry, this is positive as well. All right. It is real output. All right. B, C, and D are the possible answers, but again, horizontal axis is real output. So only B and C are left. So the last option is price level or price. You see, in macroeconomics, we use the term price level. Why we use price level? Because if we talk about price, price is of individual good, but price level is kind of an average price of throughout the economy. So we use the term price level. So your answer is B. A government makes two changes to income tax. The individual tax-free income allowance is increased. The marginal rate of income tax is decreased. How will these changes affect aggregate demand and aggregate supply in the economy? So again, both form of direct and indirect taxes are falling. All right. Because this, what does this mean? Individual tax-free allowance, tax-free income allowance. This means that first you needed to pay a tax on 100 rupees of income. Now you don't need to pay any tax until you earn 150 rupees. So you get a free pass till the income of 150 rupees. First, initially you had a free pass of 100 rupees, but now you have a free pass of 150 rupees. So this gives you a margin that you will start paying tax after on the amount that you earn more than 150. So your tax-free allowance is increasing. So overall,
Okay.
both the taxes are decreasing. So your aggregate demand and aggregate supply both will rise. Which
Okay.
supply side policy is most likely to decrease government's budget deficit? Budget deficit means that your government spending is more than your tax revenue, but we need to decrease budget deficit. This means that your government spending should fall and your tax revenue should rise. What should we do? Cutting tax rates on company profits. Now, if you reduce tax rate on company profit, your tax revenue will fall. Your tax revenue will fall, but we need to increase tax revenue. On the other hand, it is a supply side policy, yes, but your tax revenue will fall. Cutting unemployment benefits. If you reduce unemployment benefits, uh, again, this will reduce your government spending. This will reduce your government spending. And if you reduce unemployment benefit, more people will come out to work. Supply of worker will rise and wage rate will fall. So yeah, this could be a possible answer. Raising spending on education and training, this will increase your government spending. We need to decrease the budget deficit. Raising tax-free income tax allowance, again, your tax revenue will fall. We need to increase our tax revenue. So the answer is B. Which combination of fiscal and monetary policy would certainly be expansionary? We need to use expansionary fiscal and monetary policy. Government spending should be increased. Taxes should decrease. Money supply should increase, so interest rate could fall. So the answer for 22 is C. Central bank of a country raises interest rate to reduce general price level. When is this policy likely to have the biggest impact? When will this policy have the biggest impact? Now, take a look at this PPC curve. We are operating at point A. All right. We have this point, point A, and we have this point, point B. Central
Yeah.
bank increased interest rates, which means that it is using contractionary monetary policy and wants to save economy from inflation. All right. When will this be of a biggest? When will this have the biggest impact on economy? Now, if, for instance, let's say I am operating at point A, and at this stage, government introduce a contractionary monetary policy. This contractionary monetary policy will further reduce my actual point, will further increase unemployment, will further decrease economic growth. But if I am operating at point B, this means that I am operating at hyperinflation. And if in this case government introduced monetary policy, contractionary monetary policy, I will save myself from hyperinflation. So which point is more beneficial for contractionary monetary policy, point A or point B? I believe point B. And point B is on the PPC, not below PPC. It is on the PPC. Again, this part, responsiveness. If people are not responsive towards interest rate, it will not be of any use. So people should be highly responsive towards the change in interest rate. So the answer should be C, that they should be more responsive towards change in interest rate. 24 table shows trade in goods and service for an economy between 2019 and 21. What would have most likely caused the change from 2019 to 2021? What would have caused this change? Your economy is continuously facing deficit and your deficit is increasing. All right. How would this change have occurred? Increasing domestic unemployment. Now, if there is increasing domestic unemployment, this means that your aggregate demand is falling. And when your aggregate demand is falling, this means that you will not be able to import more goods and services, right? Because you don't have income. You don't have income. All right. But in this case, and
Yeah.
also if there is an increase in unemployment, your aggregate demand is falling, your price level should fall as well. Your exports should rise. Your overall balance of trade should improve. But in this case, your balance of trade is continuously worsening. So this is not a correct answer. Increasing domestic rate of income tax, again, as it is, same thing will be followed here. Your aggregate demand falls, your price level falls, your export should rise, but in this case, your deficit is rising. An increase in domestic inflation, possible, yes, because your export price will rise and your export quantity will fall. Whereas import price will fall, it will become cheaper and imports will increase. So leading to balance of trade deficit. Could be correct. Could be correct. Increasing import tariff will reduce imports. So we will not import goods and services. So the answer is C. A government subsidizes training to improve the skills of workers in the industrial sector of an economy. What is the most likely effect on the current account of the balance of payment? Government is providing subsidies to train, improve the skills of workers. And again, if my worker is highly skilled, highly trained, the quality of product will increase, leading to rise in exports. All right. Can everything clear up till now?
Yes, sir.
All right. So now we have a question of absolute and comparative advantage. Using all resources efficiently, country X can produce 6 million tons of wheat and 2 million tons of steel. Now, let me just make a table first. We have steel and we have wheat. All right, so this is your country X and this is your country Y. All right. How much wheat country X is producing? 6 million. And what is the steel amount? 2 million. And for country Y, 4 million of wheat and 1 million of steel. Based on comparative advantage data, what is correct? Now, let's make comparative advantage schedule. Comparative advantage for the first thing that I'm going for is wheat is to steel. All right, this is country X, this is country Y. So to calculate the ratio for wheat is to steel, wheat should be in denominator and steel should be in numerator. So for country X, what should be the equation? Wheat should be in denominator, steel should be in numerator. So the formula will be 2 over 6. And for country Y, it will be 1 over 4. Let me calculate. This is 1 is to 0.3 and this is 1 is to 0.25. Now let's calculate wheat is to steel is to wheat. Ratios will turn upside down. Ratio will be 2 over 6 for country X and 4 over 1 for country Y. So the ratio will be 1 is to 3 and 1 is to 4. All right. So in the production of wheat, who has a comparative advantage? Country Y has a comparative advantage. And in the production of steel, who has a comparative advantage? Country X has a comparative advantage. Now let's take a look at the options. Country X should produce steel only because based on comparative advantage data, yes, country X has a better opportunity for steel. Could be correct. Country X will not gain from international trade. No, they will both gain from international trade because either of these, because both of these countries are specialized in a particular good. Country X in steel and country Y in wheat. So the trade is possible. It will be beneficial. Country Y has no comparative advantage. Wrong. Country Y will not gain from international trade. Wrong. Answer is A. X and Y are both trading partners. An increase in which economic indicator in country Y is most likely to cause a fall in the exchange rate of country X, which means that what should happen in Pakistan, that it should reduce the value of Indian rupee. All right. So what will happen in country Y, which will reduce the exchange rate of country X? Now options: economic growth, inflation rate, money supply, and trade barriers. Now it is very common. Now it is very easy point that if country X is imposing trade barrier on country Y, if country X is imposing trade barrier on country Y, this means that if in future there is a retaliation from country Y, there is a retaliation from country Y, this will affect the exchange rate of country X. This will affect the demand and supply of country X. An increase in which indicator, which economic indicator of in country Y is most likely to cause a fall in the exchange rate. Now, sorry, the trading barrier is implemented by country Y. If country Y is implementing trade barriers, this will reduce export of country X. And if the export of country X is falling, again, your demand for country X's currency will fall, leading to a fall or depreciation in the value of country X currency. Everything clear? So the answer is clear.
Okay. Yeah, I understood.
Which transaction is not recorded in the current account? So aid is recorded in net transfer. Export of raw material is recorded in trade in good. Investment is not recorded in current account. Dividends are paid by net income. It is recorded in net income, primary income. A government decides to place a tariff on imports of raw material. Which statement about the impact of tariff is correct? We are imposing tariff on raw material. Which statement is correct? It will increase cost of production. Definitely, it will increase cost of production. It will increase consumer surplus. Not at all. It will reduce government revenue. No, government revenue will increase. There will be fall in the price of imports. Not at all. The answer is A. In which situation will a country's terms of trade improve? Either your export price should increase or your import price should fall. This is the only way your terms of trade could improve. The imports rise in value, then its exports. No, this is wrong. Imports rise in volume less than its exports. No, we are not talking about volume or quantity. We're talking about price. The price of import rises by less than the price in export, which means that your export price is rising by 10%, but your import price is rising by 5% only. So this gives us a margin of 5% in export price. So this could be correct. Value of its external payment rises by less than the value of external receipts. No. The answer is C. Everything clear?
Yes, sir.
All
Next.
right. So
Yeah.
this was all for today.